Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to APAC North. This is game number 3 out of the 4. It's T1 versus Cyclops Athlete Gaming. Let's see what CAG can pull out of the hat today, and if T1 are ready for what is to come. How have they recovered from last week versus Fnatic? Let's look at this together, Jess. First, T1.
We've gone in hard on them all day. We have not left anything at the door. We have absolutely railed them for what has been probably one of the worst years that you can have as a team in almost every single format that they've been. They've made roster changes, they've made coaching changes, they've made organizational changes in the very beginning. They've made every single change a team can make, and now the T1 organization, prestigious as it is not showing the form that they were hoping to. However, it is possible, considering the kind of player ratings we saw last week, that the players they have brought in show promise, including Fancy, their ex-coach, who has never actually been a competitive player before. He stood in before, but he's always been a coach. He stood in, was the highest rated player for the team. Unlike we usually see 11 carrying the team, that was not the case. So maybe a day where 11's on his game, Fancy gets to keep doing his thing, and of course, I'm glad Production's here and we call his name. We get to compare him against the top-rated player from the side of CAG, and even though CAG lost Fresh, I mean, Anaton, he doesn't miss often.
He doesn't miss. He had a sensational game last week on a losing side as well. It's worth saying he dropped double digits, a big KD and a very high EPP in the team that lost. And yeah, just coming back to T1 and Fancy, it's an interesting one now because they're confirmed for relegations, right? So they will be in the relegations matches. So we might see some interesting stuff coming out of them. We often talk about teams, dare I say it, saving strats for majors and SI. Am I going to say that T1 is saving strats for relegations?
Oh, true.
Do I dare kind of float that idea?
I actually don't mind that, because people who are mixed up and don't understand, in EU, the bottom-ranked team gets auto-relegated. They don't get a fighting chance. In APAC North, you get a fighting chance per your region. So this screams to me that they could possibly put everything they've got, throw everything at the wall, see what sticks in competitive, because it's the best kind of scrim you're ever going to get. And then when you get to relegations, you've done everything.
Try some new maps, try some new strats, some new ways of playing, pocket strategies. Yeah.
You can't lose anything at this point.
Exactly, yeah. You're already in relegations.
So might as well get the best out of it. That actually does make sense. For one, saving strats actually is a viable strategy for this if you want to keep on saving yourself in the league. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. But Cyclops on the other side, they can't afford to save much because they want to make it further. They want to prove to everybody that they are the best, and they need more offline experience before Invitational should they make it. So
they
major.
do. And a very slight correction on earlier, I said they needed to finish 8th in the league. They need to make playoffs to get to Invitational. So they still have a lot to play for. Yeah.
Top 4.
It's 8th in the overall APAC, so obviously they made playoffs. That's where I had a slight misinterpretation. But again, Playday 1, there was like Des on a Sunday morning. They looked very hungover. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't want to think about Des on a Sunday.
Any day, really.
They had Mexico Major hangover, and yeah,
they really did.
I'm hoping for a good performance out of them here, because we know they've got the quality. We've seen them internationally. We know they've got really good players, but it didn't quite click in Playday 1.
I'm wondering whether or not having such a smooth ride, especially in the second half of last stage, it was smooth sailing for CG, let's be honest. And they were saving strats for the major, and they still managed to win doing some crazy outlandish stuff. It was one of the, best teams to watch if you were looking for some fun ways for T1 players to play. However, now you're right, they do need to solidify a few things, so we'll see them a little bit more, prim and proper. We'll see whether that works out.
I hope so for them, though. Our map for the series, 7 in total, 6 are down and 1 is left. We'll have Clubhouse taken out with Villa as our final one, and no surprise there, T1 is starting off on defense for Villa, which kind of teeters between the two. Sometimes it goes so well for the attackers, and the other times they can barely get anything, just scraps at the end of their half. So is this the best possibility for T1 Fresh? It's
a surprise, and I don't know if it lends itself to... Yeah, because if you look at their banning history over the past stage 2, stage 3, Villa's their least most popular map. It's basically their Insta map. So does it lend itself into this kind of hiding
This man has forgotten that Korean Open exists. And to all my Korean Open fans out there, this is their stomping ground, Fresh. Come on.
But there's a difference between Tier 3 and Tier 1.
Yes, but I will say, and I'm actually going to regionalize it as Tier 2 because that's technically what the nationals are inside of APAC North. I'm going to say, considering their recent performance against some of the biggest inside of the Korean Open, for example, and even though they lost it once to Damwon Kira 5-7, all of their other results have been overwhelmingly positive on Villa. So I will say that even though we haven't seen it a lot in Tier 1 play, then I think T1, if I have a map that has a percentile win rate, it's about 80% for them, which is overwhelmingly their highest by far, even though it's just
against
the Korean Open.
Opposition,
It's still up in the air then. Maybe T1 can harness their best for this, but Cyclops might just, if they get too much started on the attacking side, it's going to not look too pretty. Fresh Jess, thank you very much. Let's take it then to beautiful Tuscany. It's Villa, it's Cyclops, it's T1, and it's Ace and Des. Take us through it. Enjoy, boys.
Say it with me, Ace. Thank you very much, Milosh. Welcome to Villa in game number 3 of the day. A big one to come down for T1 because, as we all know, things are not looking very rosy for them in this stage. Ace, there is some work to do, but you come up against a team that impressed at the Mexican Major, had a terrible week 1. They said themselves they were not match fit, they were not ready, and no doubt they've used this week to get themselves ready for what should be a dominating rollover over T1.
The problem that I've got with that largely, Des, is that they weren't just a little bit off the pace. They were a lot off the pace.
Yes.
Mag came out of that game saying that they hadn't really had to do anything other than normal default plays. Fnatic hadn't really had to show anything. It was just a case of going in and winning the gunfights. And so, whether you warmed up or not, that it's not the difference between that performance and a Tier 1 performance. And they're coming up against one of the best in the APAC North League at the minute.
What a surprise.
Got the Monty Band coming straight in, as you say, not too much of a surprise from T1 there. They want absolutely no part of that. But the form in the top left tells you the story, really. One loss coming to Cyclops last week against Mantis, where they didn't really... If anything, Des, I would say Cyclops are the team that hadn't quite warmed up ready for the stage. Not T1, given the two performances. And I think we're probably going to see something a little different out of Cyclops today. Realistically, everybody's expecting this to be a quick game.
I touch on the Monty ban every time it gets banned away against Cyclops. Monty has a 30% ban rate in the Japanese league purely because of Anitson, the man that loves running the Monty for the side of Cyclops. We saw him playing it at the Major, drop-shotting fools on Consulate. It was pretty magical, but always seems to be a target against them. The side then are going to take away, Cyclops themselves, will take away the Nomad and the Kai before everyone's favourite ban, the Valkyrie, comes out to round things out. I'd say all in all, not a super predictable ban phrase. You might look towards the Kaid and say, okay, it's more for the wall denial, around study, around master, for example. The big thing I'm excited about in this game is seeing site selection, because we were playing a bit of rank yesterday, a couple of games of Villa. We're talking about this. Dining and kitchen is becoming increasingly popular in pro play, more so than trophy statuary. That's becoming the offsite. And we even saw it, I believe, in week 1. If again, forget which region it was, we saw a Villa come through. Teams opted to go to Living and Library before stepping into Trophy and Statue. So there is a big shift in terms of what sites get played. But here we start off on everyone's favourite bread and butter site. It's going to be Aviator Games to kick off round 1.
Yeah, it's been over the last 3 to 6 months that we've started to see that increase, and it's not too much of a surprise. Sites like Aviator Games have been played over and over and over, and at this point attacking teams know exactly what they're doing. No matter what the defensive setup is, there are answers there to it, there are ways to play into it. It's been very, very deeply explored, and so it's no surprise to see those other sites getting picked up. I mean, one of the big things, if you remember, with the design of Villa is the fact that there's no external access into any of the sites, and it does make them very viable. So even your living room library, even your dining kitchen can definitely be workable, and that's now what we've got to see teams exploring more often. But for the time being, we're going to start up on the top floor. I'd expect a roam presence from T1. It's going to need to be a successful roam presence. That much is going to be very, very important here. They can't be losing men out on the roam to that Cyclops clearance. They need to get the advantage. There we go. PJH, thank you. On a big jump out. He's not going to get away with that one again, but it's a nice start from the Mozzie.
Really good start. Yeah, to bring down a man like Blackray as well on the Yana, had those frags in hand, and we've seen how deadly he can be out on the roam. Historically, it's been kind of a bread and butter piece of Cyclops' style, and although they're on the attack here, he is one of the point men for the team. Him being removed now turns a lot of the focus on towards someone like Gadarada, the second man that many would recognise from Mexico if you are, of course, just tuning into the region today to see what it's made of. A second kill comes through, and it's the man himself. It's Gadarada bringing down 11, another name that we often celebrate a lot here in APAC North, Ace.
11 certainly one to watch out for today in Playday 1. Very, very quiet compared to what we would normally experience. Not a lot of frags, and it was just a very difficult day for him. And today, need to see a bit more out of him, because otherwise you start worrying. You think, you know, we've had changes to this T1 roster. Is it really fitting in to facilitate 11 to play his best game? And he's certainly a player that you want playing his best game, because it is going to be very, very impactful. So certainly one to watch out for. He's lost his life there without having any real impact on this round, and now we find ourselves 4 versus 4 coming up to that halfway mark. The E1D scan comes out, the Nitro in response to try and prevent that push coming through from Master will be unsuccessful, as the SAM cams keep getting delivered to try and feed information. That one's going to watch the top of red stairs. We've got 90 elbow covered off as well, so being used to cover the flanks as well as the points of aggression.
Now starting to look for some kind of flank coming in through Study, which makes perfect sense. It is Suzu finding the kill. He was the one on the window just a second ago, so clearly he's been challenged from another angle and found something coming back onto his side on the 0. Sorry, pushing up 90. Wrong man I'm thinking of there. Arakaze balances his back out into a 3 versus 3. The Cyclops have got to start thinking about the pace in this round, Ace. We've got 60 seconds on the clock, and they've done the work of getting the north side set up. They've got the flanks covered by those SAM cams. Now it's about the execute, and they want this pressure on the south. That's why you've got one man looking to push up on that side and make something happen. It's Gadarada would see the man through Involt potentially, and this is where the defenders should start to feel a little bit more constrained on site.
Next kill is particularly important. If it goes in the favour of Cyclops, you feel that it'll be the catalyst, it'll be the spark that sets them going, but no, Arakaze gets himself aggressive onto that balcony and finds a kill. Suzuki goes route 1 though into sight, levels things out once again. This round has been back and forth. Suzuki sees the man on the door, finds him with a triple. Can it be 4 on the round? Wow. No! Arakaze from the Study does a great job of shutting that one down for T1, and that's going to be an opening round for them, and already, Des, a better performance than we saw from them in week 1.
I mean, when one man's dropping a 4-bomb in the first round, absolutely, you can't really complain about that. That's more kills than they got in the first 3 or 4 rounds, I think, collectively as a team last week, which goes to tell you the whole story about how dire their situation has been. Great first round coming out from the newcomer in Arukazi, and if you didn't catch up with T1 from last stage, weren't aware of what they were doing, the only 2 members that remain from stage 2 is 11 and Crazy Boy. Everyone else is completely new. So this is a kind of reshaped team, and last week they did get 7-0 rolled over by Fnatic. For my money, the best team that we have got in APAC North. So if you wanted to put that on one side and say, look, new team coming up against established one with some of the best players in the competition, you expect them to get rolled. Maybe not 7-0 rolled, but rolled regardless. Maybe today is a chance for a new lease of life, but as I always say, can you rely on hero plays round to round where one guy is picking up a 4K by himself?
The problem with that is, you know, you're absolutely right. You can't always rely on that. And it's Arakaze, which he could be a hero. We don't know. We've not seen too much of him. So, you know, is that repeatable? Is that something that we're going to see him be able to pull out consistently? Or was it right place, right time? You know, we'll see as the rounds progress, as the play days progress, indeed, and we get to see more of that new player. But right now, T1, they're going to be happy with that first round. They're up against what should be tough opposition here. But I keep coming back in my mind to something that I think it was NIP pointed out. You can't let that happen twice. Cyclops, PJH getting out there once again on the run out from that basement door this time, and manages to pick up Suzuki, and that's the SAM cams gone. That could be a big loss early in the round.
Just one of those that's a little bit like complacency comes back to bite you. And you don't want to stick a drone at every single door or window expecting a jump out. I completely get that. But that's going to be a bit of a stinger, especially when Suzu was the big man for them in the previous round. Another good start coming out for T1, and Cyclops just being a little bit complacent in these first 2 rounds, finding themselves hit off the spawn. First round was 2 minutes 45, this one 2:52. A very good start for T1.
We've got a man just holding the study balcony for Cyclops there, just wanting to cut off any potential rotations. It does speak to the potential of Cyclops looking to move from that south side. Well tracked down by Black Ray, and that is a nice kill onto the man playing underneath, and the Nitro will go along with him. So some of that vertical threat removed. Now the nade will be unsuccessful in picking up PJH. It does do a lot of damage, but it's not going to finish him off, so he will continue to play inside a library. There we go. That's the second vertical nade attempt. And Gatorada this time going to hit Arakaze and get him shut down, and that is big for Cyclops. He was the man last time around. He was the one that really caused them a problem, and this time that's not going to be possible. 11 just taking the option late in the round, relatively, to get that reinforcement put up.
Okay, well this time they've been bitten a little bit by Cyclops' roam clear, and it's been going well. One, of course, downstairs inside dining, the other to the grenade from below. They have recovered after that initial spawn peak coming in against the Zero, so even though they've lost one of their utility operators, or the info operators, sorry, you've still got things like the Decabi on side, you've still got the Iana, you've still got the drones to come out, so good play so far from Cyclops to try and recover the round back. But I always look towards the clock at the top of the screen, Ace. I always say this, the clock waits for no one. You're in a 4 versus 3. As we've seen in the previous game, even when time was there, teams can still manage to give things away if you're not too careful. And now we're down to 45 seconds. They're looking at getting control of Master. That's still quite a lot to do, I feel, before you can even think about a potential plan.
There's also low health on a number of the members of T1, though, that you've got to consider, and they could be easy gunfights, and Anaton's going to pick up PJH, doesn't matter what hit points he has there, as he finds the headshot. 11. He's on about 30, so a couple of bullets will see him done, and this is not going to be easy now. 11 on a big rotate here. This could be a big play. He knows there's a man inside a kitchen, but gets shut down as Black Ray hears him approaching. 4 versus 1 now. Cyclops come out strong in round 2. Looking good for this. Crazy Boy going to get aggressive, try and find himself some kills. He will hip fire one onto Black Ray, but that allows Ayagator all the space he needs to start putting this diffuser down. The denial will not be there. He tries the default spot, gets picked up from underneath. They know exactly where he is, and the plant is successful. Red Stairs will be the end of round 2 as Ayagator finds that final kill, and I'm not sure, Des, I'm not sure, and it might sound a bit strange, I'm not sure that winning round 1 was the best thing for T1. I think it might just really switch Cyclops on.
Maybe.
I think they might have been better picking up round 2 or 3. I just think round 1 is just...
Just don't win the round, guys.
Cyclops have just really woken up there for
just
me.
Lay down your lives.
They lost the man to PJH again at the beginning. Suzuki, they've played that 4v5, and they've just completely woken up. They haven't lost a man after that point. They've just absolutely picked apart that defence, and I don't know, it just seems like it's a little fire underneath Cyclops. And, you know, obviously teams are going to come out and win every single round that they can. I just don't know that lighting that fire was the best thing to do.
Maybe not in that case, no. But, I mean, looking at the round, it was just really good Roma control coming out of the side of Cyclops. They didn't look worried. They had 3 kills come through by just letting the Romas be the ones to rotate / run into you. It's almost like they were being counter-roamed on lurking, as players like Canadian often call it on the attacking side, just waiting for someone to come running up. And although I only got 1 kill in the round, we did see it come out for Anaton with the MK14 and the Decabi. Although Cyclops had a terrible game last week on Oregon against Mantis, he was the kind of shining light for them, if you recall. The man picking up 3 or 4 Ks, walking in through construction. A really good game playing on that Decabi, and I'm wondering if that's now becoming a staple part of their lineup that we will see more and more throughout this APAC North stage, merely because it helps you deal with these more aggressive teams that do like to get out on the roam, try and disrupt. It's almost like, although you might play this crazy style yourself sometimes, you've still got to learn to deal with it. And with all the information they're bringing, the Finker, the Iana, the Zero, everything, it all just layers together to help them deal really well with aggressive plays that might come out of teams like T1.
Not having this happen again. PGH, instead of running out this time, goes for the Nitro out of Master window, but will not be successful. He wasn't a million miles away. If he'd thrown it a second or 2 sooner, if it was possible, then he might just have caught them out on that opening frag once again. But this time will not be the case. It's going to be 5 versus 5 after 30 seconds. Cyclops not losing an early man and looking to stay competitive. Immediate pressure going towards that top floor. They are attacking onto kitchen and dining, but they want the top floor control. They want to get that vertical superiority so they can start using the angles down into sight. Looking across their operator lineup, though, they're somewhat limited in options to get that floor opened up, Des.
I mean, you've got to start looking about the utilities that they have actually got on side. We spoke earlier on about the change away to playing Habana with a shotgun. iGator not quite got the same level of confidence in his veins, unfortunately. So more relying here, I think, on the limited angles they can open up. You can do a little bit of site transformation or floor work if you wish with the MK14 on Anderton, but that's about it. I tell you what, very lucky not to bring down PJH there, who was stood very close to the doorway. He knows he's pushing his luck and backs away, but elsewhere, Arakaze has gambled big. Anderton the first to drop.
Good start there from T1 once again. 3 rounds and 3 opening kills for them. So man advantage certainly not an issue for them at the minute, because they are often playing these rounds 5 versus 4, and that is the benefit, that's the advantage that they need realistically to keep themselves competitive here against what will be a tough Cyclops side. It certainly isn't going to hurt. Now, we still haven't dealt with this top floor yet. I think Cyclops just struggling with the T1 setup a little bit, having to try and use the hard breach to clear the castle off, but Arakaze is going to say thank you very much as he trims the shoes off of Anaton, and that now leaves us in a 4 versus 3. 1 death along the way, Gatorada, and this is something that Cyclops do very well, as they fight their way back into it. They manage to level things up 3-3.
At least balancing it out, yeah, but when that final 60 seconds I was a bit nervous about in the previous round, which they did manage to convert. It's about Black Ray working his way up pantry. If he can find the man inside a kitchen, then suddenly it's a different conversation because they lose control of half the site. But again, full clearance of things like these castles hasn't yet been dealt with. I don't think he's got a charge on his Gon 6. He may have already used it. Both frags are still in back pocket. They are indeed. But you'll obviously hear the pinball on that one and give the Mozzie enough time to be able to react. And he's already escaped a near-death experience once in this round. As now we're down to 30 seconds, Ace, and nothing has changed.
You've got to get that castle cleared out for me in pantry, because it just allows them to know that there's pressure coming from another direction. PJH rounds 1, but once again traded out 2 versus 2. Cyclops keeping things level. They need to get in here, get aggressive. That's exactly what Black Ray does. Gets the kill, 1 versus 2. Alligator with an opportunity to put the diffuser down. If they know where Arakaze is, then he's in trouble. He needs to get himself back into sight. Diffuser successful, in a crossfire now. This is not going to be easy. Those shots taken teaches him exactly where he is. In comes the flash, in comes the kill. Alligator closes out the round, and it was a tight one. T1 certainly looking more competitive than they did in the last Playday, but Cyclops, they're matching the challenge at this point.
Yeah, looking much better, I think. It's especially in these late rounds, and you compare that back to, say, I don't know, T1 last week, actually, are a beautiful example of this. Think of them back on Chalet and how good their solar takes were. They always had someone in garage opening up the floor. They had Nash far out on bathroom window. They had pushes coming in on solar and office window. It was great to watch, but the late round and mid round was where they really struggled. Cyclops in this game have struggled in the early round. They've been dealt with on the spawn peak. They've had C4s thrown at them. It's been a pretty rough start for them. But come mid to late round, the points where we start getting nervous about time, that's when they really start to speed up and accelerate and are looking much better. And that, for me, is the real composure of a team when they know they're down in a 4 versus 5 and can still convert it into a round win. That's a sign of the amount of experience this team has got built up over the last 12 months.
Certainly is. We're going to be heading back up to the top floor this time. It's going to be Aviator Games once again. It's a site that T1 were able to successfully defend back in round 1. It did come on the back of that early opener from PJH, able to get a jump out and managed to get the kill onto Black Ray, and sort of just fell into place from T1. Now, if they're playing this in a 5v5, if they have to face the full force of that Cyclops roam clear, will they be able to achieve the same? I don't think PJH is going to be taking the risk this time of getting himself out so aggressively. He's tried in the first 3 rounds, but I think the time has come for him to just slow down a little bit and realise that he's going to lose his life if it keeps happening. He's got away with it so far. It's been very well judged, but enough is enough, I think, on that one.
Good read from T1 in this round. In the previous round, back in round 1 with this push, was when CAG came in from the top side. They came pushing in and worked their way down. A little bit slow at points, sure. But I'm thinking with the way it shapes up, T1 have adapted quite nicely. They've said, okay, well, we can deal with this now. Let's get ourselves in a spot where we have 2 or 3 of us out on the roam up towards the north side. We've got 1 below with a C4 in hand. They're just ready to fight off against them. So with it carries on at the current pace, Cyclops are going to find themselves moving even slower, therefore giving more chance for T1 to walk away the winner.
Got the man inside a vault at the minute, just looking to hold down this south side. They don't want to give away too much. Suzuki, he is going to take something away from Crazy Boy, though, and it will be his life, as that is the opener. And it's the first time so far that we've seen it go in the direction of Cyclops. So this will offer us the opportunity to answer another big question here, and that is, exactly how do T1 play when they are a man behind? And the majority of this round now is going to be 5 versus 4. Arakaze, I think, is in a little bit more danger than he maybe realises here.
We complimented Fnatic for this week, last week again, against T1. when you lose that opening man or lose control of ground, that you back away. They move back as a team of 3 or 4. You've just seen the same from T1. They lose Crazy Boy as the opening man and go, right, back to site now. We do not want to get ourselves caught on the cut rotates or on the cuts back to site, sorry, and get shut out by Cyclops, and that simply hasn't happened. So commending T1 for that, getting back to site here and being ready to hold as the 5 versus 4 sets in for the side of Cyclops. The first time, as you say, Ace, that they've been at a significant, well, not a significant, but a numbers advantage in general.
I like the game that PJH is playing. I often talk about disruption, Des, and not allowing the attackers or the defending side, depending which side of the coin you fall on, not allowing your enemies to feel comfortable and do what they want to do. And that's exactly what PJH is doing now. He's keeping himself just unpredictable, moving around a lot. Arakaze shut down from what was a power position for him back in round 111, as you say, with a nice headshot through onto Ayagator to get the trade, though. Fancy just having to try and move himself back upstairs. He's been ineffectual so far in the first 3 rounds, playing underneath, looking for those sort of cute nitro plays to pick up free kills, but it just hasn't been successful. He takes a lot of damage there, and as the flashes continue to rain in, so do the nades. He manages to actually escape with his life, whilst 11 doubles down on his total for the round, finds himself a second onto Suzuki. 24 seconds left, and Cyclops need an answer.
11's feeling it, Ace. He's got 2 in the round. I'm sure he fancies himself a couple more. Almost loses his life there, but still alive. A grenade comes in from Gadarada, a 3 versus 2. For a second, you thought they might fight this one back, and it's Fancy left by himself to try and clutch this one out. Finds one for himself. It's a 1 versus 1, but in comes Black Ray on the swing from Studdy. Gets the shutdown in the 1v1. The Cyclops take their 3rd round in a row.
Probably closer than it should have been. And again, that's testament to T1. Fancy doing a lot with a little there. He had very few hit points left after he tried to return from the bottom floor. Nearly lost his life to a frag grenade on those main stairs, but managed to wriggle his way back to site. And that just goes to show sometimes it really does pay dividends not to overcommit to those challenges. He knew that he was facing a lot of utility. He'd been flashed. He was being pushed. He knew that he just couldn't deliver anything in that location. So he gets himself back to site, and sometimes I like to call it playing your life. You've got to play your life and what you've got left. 20 HP, you can still find kills, and that's exactly what he did. Very nearly got it over the line, but ultimately Black Ray able to get in there and just shut things down for Cyclops, who they're looking reasonably comfortable at the minute. There's a lot of these rounds are coming down to those sort of 2v2s, 1v1s at the end, but you just always feel like Cyclops have the edge.
That's it. And I almost want to commend T1 for that, as you've done a bit there as well. I don't think they've played a bad game so far.
No, not at all.
Been very aggressive off the rip, have known when to fall back. Sure, you look at a couple of individual firefights and think, prime example in that round being the player, I forget who it was, that was sat inside a study, taking a challenge onto the balcony door and then gets shot from the east window. He knew someone was east window already, but still chose to stay and take those firefights. It's more small errors rather than big sweeping ones like some teams have got, where it's like critical clock management's really working against them, or they're being hit from unsuspecting angles. And it's good to be able to say that about T1 after 2 stages of only having, I think it was, 1 game win across the whole thing. It's a lot better seeing them back in this form now, and well, not back in form, but for the players to get back to where they know they can be at. 11 especially, he'll be thinking, man, we know we can do so much more now we've made these changes, and it is starting to be realised, so good on them.
Certainly is. Now, moving forward, I think, there's an important point here for T1 to come in and get themselves a second defensive round. Let's not forget, they're going to have to move on to the attack, Des, and that is not going to make life any easier against Cyclops on Villa. You would expect them to come out and have a very strong defence here. So T1 really could do with finding something in the next round or 2. I don't think this technical pause has actually come at a terrible time for T1, just to try and slow things down a little bit, give them the opportunity to just have that discussion about maybe what's going wrong and where. As I say, I think they need to get Fancy into the game a little bit more. He's been playing underneath and it's just been ineffectual. He's not really had any success on the nitros. He's not really been able to get involved at all, apart from that last round where he's forced back to site and then plays a bigger game. So for me, I think they need to think about how to get him more involved, because at the minute it's almost like you're playing with a man short.
I think that last round was a good case for him, for himself, to be like, yo, okay, I really can clutch these things out. That final 1v1 that he couldn't quite win against Black Ray. It's more, again, those small tweaks rather than big sweeping changes for them, which is what I'm enjoying seeing. And the adaptation they've shown, we recognise in round 1, Cyclops came from the north. We're going to defend the north this time round. So I'm keen to see how Trophy and Statue plays out, because last time we had them playing, and I assume they're going to Trophy and Statue, we're not 100% sure, but assuming the same site rotation, that's where they would go next. We saw them have a lot out on the roam, and Cyclops dealt with 2-3 roamers incredibly effectively. The push into dining, for example, just letting them roamers run back into them. So the challenge now for T1 is, can we adapt to that and recognize, actually, Cyclops have got our number with this comp. It is just too hard to play a really heavy roam game. Or do we at least need to know we're controlling this zone for now, we're chucking a C4, we're pulling back another zone, we're taking a gunfight or two, then back on site. It's going to be about discipline for them on the roam if they are willing to commit to still playing it.
The problem for T1 as well, if they can't get another round or two here and they go 5-1 into the second half, Cyclops 5-1 on defence, they don't have to take any risks at all. No. They can just sit back, they can let T1 play into them, and they're just going to find it to be a harder and a harder nut to crack because Cyclops are going to give them nothing. They're not in a position where they necessarily need to come in and take the onus. They don't need to take the peaks and the jump outs. They don't need to challenge that angle. They can just hold on to it for the time being and try and let the clock do a lot of the work, and that's something that teams like NIP do very well. Get themselves ahead and then just manage the game by forcing the other team to do the work. And I think that's probably what we'll see out of Cyclops in the second half if T1 aren't able to get a little bit more going here on their defensive half. It's going to be a shame for them, to be honest, to come away if it is 5-1 to Cyclops. I don't think, as we've said, it's really indicative of exactly how this game has gone so far. T1 have actually been playing pretty well, and I think their just dessert, their rewards would be to get a round or two here. I think, they've earned that much.
Well, back into game we go. We can hear the game sounds in our ears, which means round number 5 is underway. Keen to see then how things shape up for them, whether or not, as you say, there can be another round on the side for T1, or if Cyclops will continue their march. 3 rounds on the bounce so far, and it is going to be that trophy statue defense. So again, this round for me, keep a close eye on those roamers. How aggressive are they playing? If they're out there playing isolated, Cyclops will shut them down.
That's what we've seen so far, and I think that's what needs to be learned. The closest they've come to success for me is PJH. I said he's playing a very aggressive, disruptive game because he's very mobile. He's making it difficult for them to pin him down, and that's why he's able to win those gunfights, because they're having to react to his presence rather than going in there preemptively knowing exactly where he is, which I think has been more of the case with Fanxy, for example. He's been in an area wanting to stay in that area, and once he's been picked up on a drone, they know that they can just go in and pinch him and close him out, and that's job done. So for me, if the roamers are out there, they need to get mobile, they need to be unpredictable. Don't try and throw too much into it. Minute and a half, minute left on the clock, get yourself back to site. We saw the success of that from Fanxy last time, and really just avoid losing your lives in the early rounds, because every time it comes down to an execute or that final minute, it tends to be that T1 have only got 3 players or less left on the board, and that's when things start to become difficult, because teams like Cyclops, they will find the angles. Now, round 5, we're heading to trophy and statuary as our defensive site. We saw this back in round 2. It was a Cyclops round. There was a bit of attention paid towards that south side. I would expect to see the same again. Not seeing too much attention towards Master from Cyclops. Maybe a little bit more use of that this time. Now, out goes that Nitro again. Last time it sailed too far. This time it's absolutely pinpoint perfect. PJH, 3 rounds out of 5, has got himself not only an opening kill, but a very cheeky peek, a Nitro, a jump out. He has been getting super aggressive in the early round.
I guarantee you Fuji and Hybrid are probably sat behind the scenes now, reeling in their spots, because the number of times Cyclops have been caught on the spawn peak now, 3 times at least in the first 15 seconds, plus a couple in the first minute. It sounds bad, but it's amateur hour. They should know to expect this by now after 5 rounds on the rip of attempts coming out of the side of T1. 5 versus 4, and yet Cyclops has still managed to turn many of these rounds around. I almost want to say at this point, Ace, they're handicapping themselves. They're giving themselves a challenge and saying, we can do this 4 versus 5, right?
Certainly looks that way. I mean, you can't really forgive that Nitro. He tried exactly the same one previously. It was practically a mirror image of it, and Cyclops were in the area last time. It's not like they didn't see it. They were there. It exploded, but it was just below them and didn't do any damage. This time it catches its intended target, and I think you've got to be aware of that for the potential. You're going to hear the barricade smashing as you approach the stairs. You know that it's coming, and I think the thinker of Gatorada there just found himself a little bit in no man's land stand middle of the stairs, just hoping to get to the top before the nitro was detonated, and maybe just a little bit more care required there on the approach to the building. But I'm sure it won't phase Cyclops too much. They haven't managed to get in and level the man count yet, but as I'm speaking, Anaton does exactly that, putting the LMG of Capitao to use, finds a headshot onto Crazy Boy and gains access to and control of Astro. So that's quite a big start now. They can think about a north-sided aggressive push coming in to potentially trophy. It's 1 minute left to go, and Cyclops, they've got the not a man advantage, but they've certainly got the momentum, it feels, in this round, 4 versus 4.
I think even with the Wamayan side there, nothing caught out the firebolt, so a bit of a kicker coming through, nothing else for T1 when you've got the perfect tool online to deal with the Capitao, but none of those magnets set up to protect the Ella, sitting behind the shield and is forced to run through the burn. Unfortunate, I suppose, but again, Cyclops are fighting their way back. A 4 versus 4 becomes a 4 versus 3 in the final 30 seconds. Fanxy rotated back up and Black Ray narrowly misses him. Surely Fanxy heard him, now he has, and he's turned back round and he wins the fight. Down goes Black Ray, trade out coming through immediately onto Fanxy. It's a 2 versus 3 for Cyclops. They've got 20 seconds to play with. They need to find these kills, Ace. Otherwise, T1 find that fabled second round that we've been looking for.
They certainly do. It's unlikely that that diffuser sticks for my money. Suzuki tries, but has to come off. Shut down by PJH, and that is the round that I said T1 needed. They couldn't be going into the half at 5-1 down. This gives them an opportunity to level things up, and the way that Cyclops have played in the previous 3 rounds, that would be an absolute steal for them. Now, we have Crazy Boy just crashing out there, I think, so we will quickly get him rebooted and back into the game. It's just going to be a short technical pause once again. As soon as we can get this one back on track, we will be back into the action. Don't worry, you won't miss a thing. But T1, perfectly timed round there, I think, just getting that one back, stopping the momentum of Cyclops, and it was hard fought as well. Cyclops managed to level things up, and there was a couple of mistakes there on the Cyclops side for me. I think that miss on Astro stairs, for one, really wasn't helpful. I think at that point, you know, it really started to slip away from them.
Trust me, no one's harder on themselves right now than Black Ray, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm certain.
Walking past him, not even realise he was being shot at. I imagine he thought he was being shot at from above or something. I don't know, but he didn't turn around for the immediate challenge. Instead, opted to bomb for the corner, so he was at least sat behind a solid wall and then turn around for the fight back. So it became quite clear, I think, for the side of T1 because they did adapt really well. They moved down towards landing. They realised there was no pressure coming south side because they'd had 2 players spending the majority of the round inside of Aviator and 90. They knew it was safe. All they had to do was keep a close eye on Red, and they could then use that area of the map to play freely. Sit outside of the site, let the side of Cyclops come pushing in, and then just shot them up from like 90 hallway as soon as they start making their move forward. It's predictable is the best way I can describe it, and T1 have found in those final 20 seconds, that's when they could get the response they need. A couple of kills swinging through. Cyclops left to panic. Really good round for T1 once again.
And they need to double down on that now. They need to use that as a momentum to get this final defensive round. They could well choose to go to Aviator game. Maybe they continue the rotation and head down to Kitchen and Dining. They haven't had success in either as of yet. Aviator games, sorry.
They win round 1.
Yes, they win round 1 in Aviator games. So maybe they choose to go back there. They've just lost it in round 4. It's a bit of a coin toss, really, but I didn't feel like they were anywhere near Kitchen. So for me, I think keep it to default, keep it standard, get yourself to that top floor primary site. You've got the opportunity there, and try to get yourself a second round inside of there. I think if they come away 3-3 here, Cyclops are going to be wondering what's happened. I think Cyclops will still be happy enough with that because they're going to be confident that they can get a 4-2 defensive half. So that will see them winning out anyway. But would we expect this game to go to all 12 rounds? Realistically, coming into it at the beginning of the day, I'll hold my hands up and say absolutely not. You know, I would have thought that Cyclops would be winning this more comprehensively than that. But
I believe there were calls of 7-0 being thrown around backstage potentially.
They certainly could have been. Probably not by me, but...
I mean, you give yourself, well, I'm not going to graft you in, but now you've done it.
Giving me the look across the desk there.
Commit, mate, by all means.
It absolutely was me that said that it could be a Cyclops 7-0. But T1 have come out and given us an impressive performance. I mean, you've got to remember, Stage 2, T1 did take Cyclops to 12 rounds. It was 7-5, but Cyclops weren't really playing their A game. It was late in the stage. They had other focuses. You know, it was time to wind up to the major, and it just wasn't the usual Cyclops that we saw. It, you know, I think they were keeping 1 or 2 things under wraps. So I expected something a little bit different here today. This round for me is going to be quite quite definitive. I think this will give us a good idea about how the rest of the game goes. If Cyclops can lock down this attack onto Aviator Games, go 4-2 into that second half, then I think they're looking a lot better for it. We're just going to see that now. I can't... Gatarada just straight up the stairs there.
I mean, surely he hears the glass ball, you'd hope, right?
They've played the exact same one 2 rounds ago.
Yeah. To the same sort of
the same spot, the same everything. Honestly, lay one over the top and that nitro throw from PJH is practically identical to the one that came out before. Yep.
And this one actually connected to the other one a little bit too far away to secure a kill for them, unfortunately. However, I do want to talk about Cyclops and a couple of changes here. No, Iana leaning over towards the Buck. Got the Twitch on side here in place of the Decabi and the Capital that we saw in the previous round. So some changes being made by Cyclops, clearly acknowledging they need this 4th round on their side. I mean, you'll be delighted with 3 attacking rounds on Villa in 90% of situations, but they really want to put the pedal to the metal and make it 4. I think a Juice coming out here as well, as maybe someone tries to push their way through. It's Fanksy currently holding out inside a Living Library, and with the counter drone coming back through, they should be looking for a spot with that Mozzie to feed a bit of information back and forth. Where are they coming from? Because as we've said a couple of times, Cyclops have looked predictable, and that is when T1 have looked strongest.
So we have Fancy just on the red stairs there, looking to try and catch a man out as he pushes into the map. Arakaze just holding the main stairs, manages to catch the Twitch drone, which your eyes did not deceive you. It did attempt to jump. I think most people probably familiar with the changes by now, but a recent buff that has come in with Crystal Guard is that Twitch's drones can now jump. Twitch also gets normal drones as well now. Gatarada and Suzuki able to get 2 big starters. Des, it's all going wrong for T1 as a 3rd one drops. Gatarada onto Arakaze. And now the south side is completely under their control, as is the round as PJH goes down. There's still more than half of the round left, and Fanksy is all alone inside a site. He's behind the bar, but gets shut down as Ayagator gets in there, pulls himself a drink as he shuts the barman down, and he's going to close out the round. That's a flawless for Cyclops, and that's a message sent about what can be expected in this second half.
A huge push when Gatarada can just push up main and kill 2 people as well. That is normally a massive point of contestation between 2 sides, where the smoke's being shut down, there's barbed wires down there, there'll be Legion goo mines set up, anything to stop attackers just freely walking up. Yet that's exactly what Gatarada got away with. So maybe not quite the anticipation from T1 that we'd see such an aggressive push coming out of Cyclops, either A, that early, or with that player that being willing to go that level of aggressiveness. But hey, as it shapes up, that is the round they were looking for. 4-2 at the half for Cyclops. T1 with a mountain to climb now, because they go on the attack, and this will be very telling about how they can piece together an attack against a similar level of aggression that we saw T1 showing in the first half.
That's it. And I mean, you know, T1 could look at that and think there was maybe opportunity to take another round, but, you know, ultimately, that's how the drone rolls, Des. You know, you've got to take opportunities where they are presented to you. You've got to get in and get those kills, win those gunfights, and that's going to be more important than ever now for T1, getting onto the attack, because it's up to them to make this happen. It's up to them to get in there and be aggressive and get kills. And as I said, with Cyclops being in the lead here coming in, I think they're going to be happy to play this kind of passively. I can't see them bringing out those big early peaks like PJH has been doing. They're going to try and just settle into this one.
You're really going to leave that without comment?
I don't think it requires it. I don't think it requires it.
Yeah, I think it needs a clip, though.
Jack deserves a little shout.
He does.
I took that one from him.
Not fresh. Screw that guy. He doesn't need a set shout out. It's other Jack. Let's see how this round gets jacked up for one side, though, because we need to see something big out of T1. I keep on saying they've got the gridlock on side here, so with the Nomad banned away, they do have an alternative. And I spoke about this last week. We've seen a few teams, well, not a few teams. I think it was one team in about half the rounds they played. They did bring along the gridlock. Smokes for the execute, bit of an alternative. I believe it was on Clubhouse. No, not Clubhouse, sorry. Coastline, I want to say it was brought along. Seems to be not a popular alternative, but for a couple of teams who are experimenting with different things, like the Hibana shotgun, why not try something else?
Experimenting is certainly one word. I mean, ultimately, they came away with the positive end of the results.
Negative in mind there.
You know, they came away with the positive end of the results. Do I see the Hibana shotgun sticking around and being widespread? Maybe not, but it worked out today, one way or another. JJ, he got his job done, and so did Guts. But it was an interesting choice nonetheless. I think it surprised a few of us. Now, in goes the Gridlock's Track Stingers, just to shut out any opportunity for Cyclops to try and push into Study too aggressively. But I don't know if that was just a bad throw or whether Suzuki cleared them out as they were landing. I think it's likely the second, if I'm honest. I think it was down to Suzuki just clearing them out, but the path is there, so that's not going to delay Cyclops whatsoever in trying to get in there. And right now, they're holding firm inside of Aviator Games.
And this Flores, it gets banned away a fair few times, but it is stupidly impactful. If you leave that uncontested, it can just roll its way through the door, as it's going to do now. It's going to very happily pick up a bunch of free util. In this case, of Goyo's shield. No bulletproof cams or ADS is stacked around it, which is what you would normally see holding up that area. But it's always the question of, where are you looking? You're looking towards doorways where you might get swung, or are you looking at drones? And normally in the mid-round, you're not used to looking at drones. You'll kill one if it rolls by your feet, but you're not watching every single doorway and every single drone hole, which I think is why the Flores can be so impactful, and normally is where you'd see something like a mute, which Gatorado has brought along as an option to deal with that.
PGH has lost at least one of those Roteros. It was shot out as it tried to go in for a second pass to Aviator Games. Fancy will find Blackray, who's playing downstairs, and that could be a big start for T1 here. It gives them the advantage, but it's very late. Only 40 seconds left to go and no real control over sight here. You can see still 4 men for Cyclops inside of sight, holding angles and looking to hold them off. Now Fancy, he just brute forces his way through the Aruni gate, but he gets shut down from Vault behind the maps table. Suzuki getting aggressive there, finds himself 3 versus 3. 20 seconds left to go. Gatorada on the flank. I'm not sure if he's aware of the man on window, but he will try and hit him on the fadeaway. Fails. Nonetheless, this push keeps coming. Arakaze is in, trying to get that diffuser down. Behind Vault door will be successful. 11 finding a huge kill there. And T1, they've surely done it at this point. On the flank comes Gatorada, but he's going to have a big job ahead of him.
It's an awkward retake as well, where you got to step inside of Vault and the man in Study at the same time. We saw how well it worked out for the initial push coming in from the attackers. In comes Gatorada. He knows surely, oh my god, PJH, this is just torture. Make the man run over a drone, and Arakaze finds the 3k in the round, gets the plant down, gets the kills. 2 rounds in this game, it's worth mentioning. Round 1, a 4k, that one just then a 3k. Those are 2 of the 3 rounds that T1 have won. A fantastic performance coming out of Arakaze so far.
Yeah, he's going very well. He's been impressive, particularly in that area of the map. Seems very switched on to it. Now, 4-3 and a good win for T1 on the attack. Give them a little bit of confidence, get them moving. Cyclops certainly know that this isn't going to be all their own way now. They're going to head to Aviator Games again. Obviously confident that they can get that one locked down. I mean, with 4 men still left in sight and about 20-25 seconds left to go, you might have expected Cyclops to be able to turn that one out and just dig in. But T1 did a fantastic job. Got to hand them credit where it's due. They found the angles, they found the kills, and took the opportunity to get that diffuser down. If this is a team that can develop itself to be maybe objective focused, getting in there, getting the plants down and forcing teams to play around their plans, then it could well be that they find some success with it. Now, the setup is looking like it's going to be very similar on both sides. We've still got the gridlock being brought along. I mean, T1 not going to be too keen to change anything, I wouldn't expect. The Goyo makes a visit again. Those shields cleared out by the Roteros last time around. I would expect to see at least a similar attempt, whether it happens or not. The big thing for me here, Des, is that Cyclops need a little bit more success underneath. The man was shut down reasonably easily. T1 getting the advantage after the roam clear, and I think Cyclops could just do with a bit more impact there.
Interesting one where they're not actually really playing too many players up towards the north side here for an extended hold, but do have Yokais up there for support. A couple of C4s on side to make good use of as well, so I like the setup currently coming in for the side of Cyclops. The one thing I'm watching for especially is those main stairs, because let's not forget Gatorada blitzed the hell out of T1 previously and, well, ruined the round for them on that pushing on the south side. So hopefully Cyclops, they know what they've got away with and know to watch out for it on the other side of things. The question is anyone really brave enough on the side of T1 to go for that charge forward? Because when you've got the Flores on side, surely you want to be sending those up first. 11 almost being hit on the rip out the window by Black Ray.
Taking an awful lot of damage there. That's it. He's tracking him down. He's opening windows. He's really trying to find him. And this is the sort of aggression that I wanted to see out of Cyclops. I said they might come in and be a little bit passive on the defence, just trying to hold off. And with 4 players on site, I think it's fair description of what they were doing. But now looking to maybe get a little bit more aggressive. Black Ray on that roam, really desperately trying to find a kill for his team this time. And again, that was another difference that I said that Cyclops needed to find. Last time around, he was picked up for nothing and closed out in the first half of the round. This time, they just need to know that that entrance to the building isn't going to be quite so straightforward.
I love this use of yokais. We spoke about it a little bit on the EWEL broadcast on Monday, just how they're being used far more aggressively. You've got one up inside a trophy, helping watch out towards the north side, one being used aggressively to support the main stairs player. There are 2 of them here. There's a mute jammer, there's 2 ADSs. I think there's a shield still at the top, for example. It's a very good hold coming in on this top side. In fact, no, it got blown out. You can see where the carpet has been removed. So a much firmer hold on the south side for Cyclops than what we saw coming out of T1. But it's that name again on our lips. It's Arakaze onto Aegator to start the round off.
And a great kill it was as well, holding a very tight angle, knowing that that Jaeger just could not resist having a little peek onto the corridor. Does take a lot of damage for his trouble, though. That is now 11, and Arakaze probably 1 shot away from death. Gatarada manages to find one. Anaton, Suzuki, they're all getting in on the party deads. It's falling apart like a house of cards here. They're ripping through them like a wet paper bag. 11 is the last man alive, low health, trying to push the stairs, but this is going to be a big ask now. 1 versus 3. Steps up, he's a breath away from death. It's not going to take much at all, and Cyclops, they're just going to sit themselves back into these 45 positions. 11 gets an absolute freebie there onto Black Ray. That's going to be the Goyo down, but his position is now known. Tries to challenge onto the bar. It's as if Cyclops just want to give kills away here, Des. They're just exposing themselves over and over. They're making me nervous. Steps into vault. 11 finds another shutdown on the trade. Essential there. He should never have got that close.
No way. Not when there's 3 left alive and you're bringing it down to a 1 versus 1. Bit of a kicker, but as it sits, it's still another round going the way of Cyclops, no matter how close it may have been. It is 5-3. We're at that point where you always love talking about this round in particular. You got a few, actually. Rounds 7 to 9 are like your danger zone. You love being in those kind of situations because we are set at 5-3. This one gets won. It's at least guaranteed overtime for the side of Cyclops. You see him winning at least one of those 3 site rotates that they get to play on the defensive side. For T1, if they win it, they're then 1 round away for being able to catch back up again. They've got some real momentum in the second half, and suddenly you start asking that question of, is OT available between these 2, or could T1 really go the distance? But they've called this time out now. They want to have a chat. That round in particular didn't like there was anything massively wrong outside of 4 players all pushing up main stairs and being slaughtered by shotguns, SMGs, you name it. They were all coming out for the defensive side, and we said at the round start, we saw what happened when it was T1 defending those stairs. Cyclops just blitzed their way up and got a 2K with Suzuki. At least here the adaptation was there, and Cyclops acknowledged, okay, that could be something they try and do, and now they show they can deal with that. So really well played by Cyclops too.
Yeah, it was a nice round from them. As you say, T1 just taking the opportunity. It's these mid-rounds, it's these, as you say, rounds sort of 7 to 9 that are particularly important. I feel like that's where the mentality, that's where the mental game is won or lost for a lot of teams. When you get to this point, that's where you see the back broken of a lot of teams, whereby it just becomes too great a climb for them. We're going to have a couple of 6th picks coming out. It's going to be a defence of trophy and statuary this time. Cyclops going to be very keen to get this one done, get themselves that guaranteed overtime, because you just know this is a game they were coming into with no disrespect to T1 looking at thinking we need to get that win. T1 are the team that are going to be fighting down at the bottom of the league. Cyclops unbeaten in stage 2, took a loss first out last week. They now need to start getting those wins, because as we've seen, APAC North is quite a short season, 8 teams, 7 games. So if you lose your first 2 games, you're already almost completely off the pace for taking that top spot and the guaranteed major. So Cyclops, they've got to start winning now. If they want any hopes of that top spot, they've got to win from here on out in regular time, maximise the points.
The beautiful thing is, Fresh covered it today in the pre-show, is that Cyclops are right now the only team from APAC North likely to go to the major, to SI at the start of next year in February. assuming, of course, it goes ahead, which hopefully it should be. But they're the only one currently sat in that spot. And I think he said as long as they finish 7th or higher, they are 97% likely to get to invite. So I'm not saying this game doesn't matter. They can lose 3, they can lose 4. It doesn't matter. No. If you want to be a team that is going to seriously compete at the November Major, at SI, for example, you need to be winning games like this. Like, you can't waddle your way through a season just taking, loss against that team, don't matter. An almost win there. Doesn't really matter if we've lost that one away. It does need to be consistent success. I agree with you.
Arakaze just looking to challenge onto Study Door once again. Black Ray playing the roaming aggressive into Study, but that was a close battle. It was difficult to tell which way it was going to go. Arakaze actually taking a lot less damage than I maybe expected, and for anybody wondering why he's not dashing in trying to find that kill, it's worth remembering that these guys play on the Pro League HUD, so they don't have any points or anything enabled, so there is nothing to feed back. There's no output to them to tell them that somebody has been down. So just getting the drone in there, better safe than sorry, making sure that the man hasn't chosen to just drop prone behind the desk, and then the kill is finished off. So that's going to be Black Ray gone, and the south side is now opened up. Gatorada is playing underneath on the mute, but we've not seen too much of an impact from those lower floor roamers too often inside of this game.
No magical C4s coming flying later into the round. I think because the teams are so mobile, they're just willing to go and challenge those players if they are down there. You don't want to leave yourself high and dry on site itself. In fact, the only time we've really seen a plant denial attempt coming in from below was the Ella, if you remember, with the shotgun coming out of Crazy Boy, which didn't connect onto anyone. So it has been a very horizontal game. It's generally all been on that one plane rather than playing across both floors, even though we have seen players on both floors throughout the game.
Drones just going in just after the halfway point, but again, good utility usage, good placement of those drones, just preventing them getting in and recognising exactly where the defenders are playing. The Flores Rotero drone going to clear out some more utility from the bathroom door. Interestingly, there's no rotate from Astro through into the site, so the man playing inside of there will have to rely on being able to get back to those single doors to be able to manoeuvre back into site if needed. Now, out goes the flash right across the little courtyard, if you want to call it that. I don't know what you'd call that in the middle, but the flash goes out across. Fancy takes the opportunity to get into site, and he is in a position to support this diffuser going down. As Arakaze starts to do that, the Yokai drone comes in. They'll know that the plant is happening, but can do nothing about it. 11 finding a kill, and it's all going in favour of T1 here as one drops after another. It's all up to Anderson. 1 versus 4. He finds one, leaving himself now 1 versus 3, but only about 25 seconds left to do this.
He's got a lot to do, and I think he's worried this man round to his left, goes to the free fire, does find him in the end, sees the next man step in, but that one's won out by 11. T1 with another good push, and I'm not 100% sure whether I want to put it down to really good pushes coming out of T1, because let's be frank, they had wall closed, so there was no real reason why Cyclops didn't need or couldn't be inside a statuary there, yet they still run through Master Door, ignoring every possible angle from, say, landing, of which they had very little control. They had no control of Astro, so really they could have been challenged, but instead, 2 players get in deep and managed to stick the plant off. So good confidence coming out of them, but somewhat questionable coming out of Cyclops to where are the angles? Where's the person trying to contest into Master in the first place? Because no one was there.
Moving forward then, T1 are pushing us to potentially see all the rounds available to us here. It's going to be dining and kitchen this time as Cyclops, they choose to move themselves away from Trophy Statuary, having lost it there. It's currently 5-4 now on the board, and T1 are certainly making a game out of this. Cyclops may be starting to wonder where these rounds will come from. They seem to be having flashes on the defence. The won round number 8 very convincingly, but then round 9 just get completely run over inside of Trophy and Statuary. Now, Ayagator is on side with the Pulse. It's always a pick that I like to see where you're expecting that top floor play to come in from the attackers. It just gives an opportunity not just for information for himself, got a Nitro in hand of course, but if he plays closely with players like Anaton, like Gatorada, they've also got Nitros, and just feeding that information in, giving a little ping on the ceiling, pop your Nitro there, I'll tell you when to explode it, and you get some very nice interplay there.
Southside start for the majority of T1. I wonder if this results in a full topside clear as well. If they like get someone in below, look to push it from Art Studio Northways to be able to contest into, say, Mausoleum, or whether it's going to be the top floor, potentially both of them. That does stretch you quite thin because you've got so much map ground to cover. So unless you've got like hot drones coming in or whatever, or live drones in front of attackers, whatever you want to call them, that'll be what you're looking for. You've still got the Roteros on side, you've got the Lion Scans, the EE1Ds to help out along the way too. They can hold this long angle all the way through Piano straight up red if they so choose, which will restrict the defenders from moving around and rotating about quite a lot. But again, it's a lot of ground for T1 to cover.
It is, and T1, they are on the verge here. Make no mistake of causing a big upset. Not many would have expected them to be able to pick up a win here against Cyclops. It'll absolutely ruin the talent predictions. There's everybody back in Cyclops. I can almost feel the tension in the other room. Everybody sat watching this, knowing that it could be going south. Black Ray is just going to hold an angle from Library there out onto the doorway towards the main entrance of Villa there, just trying to catch his man as he moves across, but he's had to dip himself back and out of the way. He's got the support of Pulse, but shut down through the desk. You've got to be aware of that soft surface. 11 knows exactly where he is and finds his man. The Nitro from Iregate are going to have to be wasted to open a rotation and give himself an option to escape from here. Now tries to make the shotgun challenge and does so successfully, using that rotation to get away. He's being chased. He can't find the kill as the Pulse of Iregate turns around, sprays, and then dips away to escape and live to fight another day. Gets himself into the basement, and now the question is, where will he pop up to get himself back into the action?
Oh, I hate it when they disappear into basement. I was asking this question just for fun. Give me a single call out in basement.
Barrels.
Well, basement was the answer.
I learned after you asked me last time.
See. Okay, well, if that's the way it's got to be. If I've got a challenger live on broadcast to learn some call-outs, we'll go for it. Not going to lie, I haven't got an idea of a single one down here. It is a void that defenders occasionally disappear into and then may reappear in at a given point or around pantry. Sometimes you can see a bit of challenge on the stairs down there. However, with him now down there playing on the Pulse, the info that you can feed of what's going on the ground floor would be mega for them. But in comes Arakazi with the swing. Adarada swings back and finds the kill onto him. 4 versus 3 for Cyclops, and Crazy Boy finds one back. Fancy another, but Suzuki and Master was unchecked. Brings it back to a 2 versus 2. Only 30 seconds to play with. Oh, what a flick up from Suzuki. Beautiful. PJH now with it all to do. And although he's had a pretty good game so far, is it enough to clutch up against Anaton and Suzuki, both on 7 kills apiece since the rehost? I'm not too sure, Ace.
Suzuki's just going to sit on top of that diffuser. Great shot from PJH there to take that out, and he had to move in and try and pick up the briefcase as he does so. It's a nice easy pick up, just coming out of the full flash. There's the movement, all that Suzuki needs. Suzuki, I won't say single-handedly, but he has a big part in winning that round. His play from Master then was absolutely fantastic, getting kills on either side of him, dropping the diffuser. It was all good stuff. I briefly touched on it, but a big shout out to PJH to just predict that Nitro coming up over the balcony there and to be able to shoot it out was a great display of skill from him.
I know you said you don't really put it down to him as an individual, but I probably do, because otherwise they had control there. They'd traded out the player inside of Astro. At the top side of Statuary. You'd had Fancy getting a kill elsewhere around the map, and I was, oh great, they found the 2 kills they need. Site control is theirs. They just weren't aware of the man that was holding inside of Master and killed 3 of them from that point onwards. So massive round for Suzuki later on. Really good start after, of course, Black Ray died early on to 11. Some good drone work coming out of T1. Again, it's kind of the story of this game for me for T1 has been small mistakes throughout. There's not really been any big glaring errors. They had 3 players that got control of Art Studio and south side of the map. All of them got on drones. They found out where Black Ray was and got the kill, just didn't quite anticipate the pulse, unfortunately. So another decent enough attack for them, just didn't end super well thanks to Suzuki. Can't drone everything, Ace, and that was our fear. Villa is a big map, and they wanted to clear the whole thing.
That's the thing, Villa is a big map, and you really do have to be. It's, drone economy and drone use is not something we've really touched on too heavily here, but it's something that you got to be bang on top of because it's a big map. There's a lot of opportunities for rotations. There's a lot of opportunities for flanks. This was absolutely beautiful. Look at that, just zips straight up and finds the head. And I think Crazy Boy, I think it was on the stairs there. He can, I'll be honest, feel hard done to there. That's the one where I'm just sitting back from my screen and I'm thinking I'm done with this game for today.
I mean, don't worry. I'm sure that frustration will be over in about 1 round's time, specifically 2.5 minutes or shorter. Interesting change away for, as I say, for Black Ray coming in here, where he's moved away from playing the Alibi back onto the Mozzie, but Gadarada starting off on 11. That's a great way to kick things off for Cyclops in this round and potentially secure themselves the win in round 11. As 11 himself, oddly named, also coincidentally named, sorry, is the one who's been doing some work since the rehost.
Yeah, he's been going well. He's certainly been going better. Maybe not quite up to the speed that we might expect to see from him or that we have seen in previous stages. But, you know, Des, that might be a promising sign for T1. If the other players are chipping in and that's why 11's not finding as many kills, then that can only be a good thing for them, because you can't build a one-man team. And, you know, maybe that's what we've seen out of them previously. PJH is having a good game today. I think he definitely deserves the shout. Manages to pick up a Rotero drone kill there onto Irrigator, who's asking the big questions in the chat.
I thought it was the Echo. I was like, we've seen this happen to an Echo in EUL last week, but I think it was the Maestro, similar story. Sat on cams, didn't know one was parked at his feet, and sure enough, blown to the sky high.
Asking the big questions, but the only answer he needs is the fact that he lost his life to it. 4 versus 4, 1 minute 30 left to go. T1 still largely on the outside of the map here. Need to be a little bit conscious of that clock. There is plenty of time left, but they still have a lot of work to do. Black Ray is still playing underneath. He's got a Nitro in hand, so that is something that they need to factor in. If they're going for a north-sided push here, Des, you'd normally expect to see teams inside the map inside of 30 to 40 seconds if they're going for a north-sided push, just to give everybody a little bit of context of maybe how late this is from T1.
It is very split, mind you. They do have PJ looking to push down the south side, so identical to what we saw coming out of Cyclops when they were on their attack, and T1 acknowledged the same and said, okay, second time defending this site, we roam towards the north. We force them to waste more and more time, run the clock lower, and then see how they panic when it comes round to the actual execution. And maybe it's a similar thing, but Black Ray is the one to worry about. Coming his way up the back stairs, I hope to God Arakaze and co have got themselves a flank drone on the go. Otherwise, he could spell disaster for the side of T1 and their hopes of seeing this game go to overtime.
They really could find themselves in big trouble. Suzuki from Red Stairs. There you go, Gatarada. That was the man that we picked up on, but they did not, and that is the kill coming in. Can Black Ray have an impact as well? The Mute and the Mozzie just going to be an absolute nightmare. Smoke and Mozzie, I apologise. Black Ray it is to get on that flank and find the kill onto Arakaze. That flank not being watched, and it's cost them, Des, as he gets himself a second. Suzuki shut down. It's all up to PJH. He finds himself a second. Surely not. No! He gets closed out and finished off, and that is going to be Cyclops taking the result that we expected, but not quite in the fashion that maybe we expected. No. T1 deserve a shout there. They've come out with a strong performance. I'm impressed with what I've seen overall.
That's exactly it, right? I don't even look at this game and go, oh, it's another wobbly week for Cyclops. Sure, it's not like, again, I said it about Damwon before, it's not another Mexico-level performance, but I give a lot of that onto T1. I thought their play was brilliant, their defenses, the aggression on the roaming. Sure, you ask some questions of Cyclops, why aren't you dealing with these C4s, with the spawn peaks that have now hit you 5 rounds in a row? But it's still a good game. It's a massive improvement over the T1 that we've seen. The big fear for me, though, Ace, they're still 0-2. It doesn't matter what roster you bring in, what score lines you put up. All that anyone cares about at the end of the day is what points you have, and things are still looking bad for the side of T1. Let's get over to Milos and the guys on the desk to have a chat about this game.
Thank you very much, Des and Ace. Cyclops